The women's suffrage movement began in 1848, when the first Women's Rights Convention was held in Seneca Falls, New York. Over the next 50 years, women's suffrage supporters worked to educate the public of women's suffrage.
The original Constitution did not grant suffrage or the right to vote to women. During the early 1900s, women's associations became militant as thousands marched and demonstrated in cities across the country, known as the suffragettes. Their hard work resulted in the 19th Amendment being passed in 1920, granting to all American women the right to vote.
Elizabeth Cady Stanton was an American social activist. She was the leader of the early women's rights movement, and she wrote the Women's Bible. In the Women's Bible, Elizabeth Cady Stanton declared that religion was the leading cause for women's repression. The Women's Bible was also an attempt to explain and redefine scriptural references pertaining to women in the basis that these were often used to deny women particular rights and privileges. The Old Testament of the Bible had many things indicating that women are unequal to men. Another important woman during the women's suffrage was Susan B. Anthony.
She was a great inspirational leader. She rallied hundreds of thousands of women.
Susan B. Anthony changed the course of history for women in the United States.
At the beginning of her career, of her dedication to women's rights, she was much despised.
Her arrest for voting in the 1872 presidential election and eventual trial paved the way for women's political rights.
One of the things she brought to the women's movement was a tremendous faith.
Susan B. Anthony was born in 1820 in Adams, Massachusetts. She was from a tight-knit Quaker family who believed in education.
In the Quaker meeting house, men and women spoke equally. And so Susan B. Anthony thought that that's the way it was everywhere.
The reality was most women were uneducated, could not own property, had few legal rights, and were subservient to men. And Susan B. Anthony wanted equal rights under the law for both sexes. Anthony met Elizabeth Cady Stanton, the architect of the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York, and the duo teamed up.
They were responsible for every right we have as women today.
Stanton had that sort of intellectual vision. She had the way with words. And Anthony had from the beginning the vision of what it meant to build a movement.
It was 1872 that Anthony caused a national sensation when she voted in a presidential election illegally. Her trial had an all-male jury, and Anthony was not permitted to speak on her own defense.
The trial was rigged. Her vote didn't count, but she got great publicity value out of it.
Anthony was fined $100, which she never paid. She did, however, continue to spread the word on women's rights throughout the U.S. and Europe.
She appeared in front of every Congress from 1869 until 1906, the year she died.
Women were finally given the right to vote in 1920, 16 years after Susan B. Anthony died.
I think that every February 15th, women in this country should recognize that as Susan B. Anthony's birthday, and just for a second, say thank you.
Susan B. Anthony was a Quaker, and in the Quaker meeting house, they believed in equality. So Susan grew up believing in equality. She knew equality between women and men was what was right. Religion did have quite an influence on the women's suffrage. People used religion as a way to back up why women shouldn't have all the rights as men, and the religion also showed them what it's like to have equality. Now, because of women like Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony, women can vote.